Give me back my copyright. This is what we're talking about today. This is an interesting one. We all know that Bad Boys 4 just dropped, what, over a week ago, and hey, it is almost done. It has already done over 200 million worldwide in the box office. Now, the creator of the original Bad Boys, George Gallo, hit the studios with a lawsuit last year when he heard that they were coming out with a Bad Boys 4 saying, hey, give me back my copyright. I'm done playing with y'all. Y'all done made too much money off my works. Give me back my copyright. So we'll get off into it. We're going to read the report from the Hollywood Reporter. This is an interesting one. For those of you who don't know, my name is Dave. I am a 10-year intellectual property attorney dealing in everything from patents to trademarks to trade secrets. And yep, you guessed it, copyrights. Now, for those of you who don't know, copyrights it has to be an original work of authorship that is fixed in a tangible medium. So what are some things that we all know to be copyrights? You can copyright a book. You can copyright a TV show. You can copyright a movie. For all my artists and entertainers out there, music, whether it's the actual beat or the production of the music, as well as the sound recording, the voice of the music. All that is copyright eligible subject matter. And in this case, dealing with the Bad Boys franchise, the movie is considered a copyright. And the interesting thing about this, as we take a look at the report here and why George Gallo, the original creator and copyright holder of the movie, why he wants his rights back. Typically, when you create a copyright, you don't necessarily have to publish your work. The moment that you write that book, the moment that you shoot that video, the moment that you shoot that movie and record that music, you have a copyright on that right then and there. Now, you will need to register it with the Copyright Office to get additional forms of protections in terms of being able to sue somebody for money. However, what a lot of people don't know, I know trademarks have some common law rights, but a lot of times trademarks, patents, you have to file those in order to have your rights kind of go into effect, if you will. Whereas copyrights, you don't have to do that. The moment that you record that music video, record that movie, write that book, you have a copyright right then and there. It goes into effect right then and there without you having to register that work with the Copyright Office. However, to be able to sue somebody for money and to get some additional benefits, you have to register that work. And for all of you who maybe don't know, a copyright is good for the life of the author plus 70 years. So it lasts for a pretty long time. So let me pull up the lawsuit here. This is going to be a good one. So this is from the Hollywood Reporter. This came out last week sometime. And it's Columbia Pictures settles copyright lawsuit over the rights to the Bad Boy story. So again, it looks like Columbia and the original writer for of the Bad Boy story, George Gallo, they came to a settlement here recently. So let's go through it here really quickly. The studio argued in a lawsuit filed last year that George Gallo can exploit a provision in copyright law that allows authors to claw back ownership of their works after a certain period of time. And again, so we're going to take a look at it about what he was trying to do. But it's interesting because it seems like after a certain period of time, in some cases, you as a copyright owner, although you gave away your ownership, your rights to your work, because you can assign your rights to the work, after a certain period of time, you can take it back. So it seems like what George Gallo, the original creator, the copyright owner of this Bad Boys movie, that's what he's trying to say. He's trying to say, look it, man, okay, I gave you guys rights to it, but now I can, based on these clawback provisions, I can take my rights back from you guys so that you guys cannot monetize off of it. That's essentially what he's trying to do. Now they settled, but I think this is a good learning lesson for all the creators out there to maybe kind of go about this situation a little different as you're kind of finding yourself in that as far as assigning your copyrights and things like that. Because one of the benefits of having a copyright is you have the rights to create derivative works, is what we call it. And what is derivative works? So that Bad Boy movie is the original copyright. But now as a copyright owner, you can create derivative works, which means you can create a Bad Boys 2. You can create a Bad Boys 3. You can create a TV show of the Bad Boys. You can create a book based off the movie. And a lot of times you see that reverse where somebody writes a book which is the original copyright. Then that book has a movie that comes out. You may have a TV show that comes out. All of those are derivative works, but you have to be the owner of the copyright to be able to produce those derivative works. So it's very important being an owner of the copyright. And again, the owner of the copyright is different from the creator of the copyright. You can create a copyright and then assign your ownership or your interest to someone else, and now they're the owner of the copyright, and they have the ability to do to produce or generate derivative works. In this case, Columbia Pictures, being an owner of that copyright, the original Bad Boys movie, they have kind of produced derivative works, that being Bad Boys 2, Bad Boys 3, Bad Boys 4. They had a TV show spinoff. So they're kind of creating these derivative works. And then I'm sure George Gallo was saying, man, these guys are making a lot of money based off my original work. I need to take that back so I can capitalize off it. Again, it always goes back to the money. And it seems like I would imagine they both settled. So I would imagine that, Bad Boys 4, over a weekend, over a week in the box office has done over 200 million. So I'm assuming that they broke him off during the settlement. I wish we can pull up these settlements and kind of go through them and see what both sides agreed to. I would imagine that they kind of broke George Gallo off a decent amount, especially since the thing is the movie Bad Boys 4 has been successful so far in the box office. So let's kind of see what the lawsuit had entailed, because this is going to be important. Columbia Pictures and George Gallo, who wrote the story that was developed into the 1995 action hit Bad Boys. So again, George Gallo wrote that story, have settled the lawsuit. Okay, both sides in a joint court filing on Friday notified the court of the settlement. Let's see here. Bad Boys, which again is starred by Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, has spawned 3 sequels. So this is what I'm talking about. These are the derivative works. 3 sequels and a TV spinoff. So they've been making a ton of money, Columbia Pictures have, based on the derivative works to that original Bad Boys movie copyright. A 4th installment to the franchise debuted last week. Again, it's a strong box office numbers. I think it did over $100 million in the box office the first week, and it only took $100 million. So they essentially got their money back the first week, and we already know. So now they're in the clear, and they're going to be making money here on out. So Columbia Pictures argued in a lawsuit filed last year that Gallo can exploit a provision in copyright law that allows authors to claw back ownership of their work after a certain period of time. It asked the court for a declaration that Gallo penned the story as a work made for hire, which would make it ineligible for termination. When word of Bad Boys 4 broke out, Gallo served the studio with termination notices that purported to terminate the assignment of his copyright to both Columbia Pictures and Sweet Revenge Productions, his production entity, which is interesting because it seems like he assigned this thing, and I'm going to break all this stuff down, but it seems like George Gallo, he assigned his rights to the original Bad Boys to Columbia Pictures, which we all know Columbia Pictures, but also to Sweet Revenge Productions, which was his production company that he owned. So he assigned the right of the original Bad Boys copyright movie to Columbia, as well as his production company, Sweet Revenge. Just kind of keep this in mind because it's all going to make sense here in a second. He claimed Columbia Pictures lost his U.S. rights as of June 22nd, 2022, to make new works based on his 1985 story, The Bad Boys. I guess he originally called it The Bulletproof Hearts, but it came out as The Bad Boys. And he pretty much telling Columbia Pictures that he was able to claw back, based on his clawback provision, he was able to get his rights back to the kind of copyright as of June 22nd, 2022. Under U.S. copyright law, authors can recapture their rights to previously transferred copyrights after waiting a period of time. High-profile legal battle. So it seems like this has kind of been going on with iconic franchises in the 80s, including Top Gun, Predator, and Terminator of Friday the 13th. So it seems like all these owners who kind of created these iconic films back in the 80s are now trying to get their rights back from the studio. However, this is an important exception. Works made for hire aren't subject to termination, which was the thrust of Columbia's argument in a lawsuit. According to the complaint, Gallo represented that he created and or wrote the story as an employee for hire of Sweet Revenge. So again, this is what's happening. So they're saying, hey, if you personally owned the copyright and you assigned your interest, say, to Columbia Pictures or even your own production company, you based on these clawback provisions, you can get ownership in your copyright back. However, if you made this work, as far as a work made for hire, you cannot get that copyright back based on these clawback provisions. So in other words, these clawback provisions only apply to you writing a story and having personal rights to it, and then assigning those personal rights to a company such as Columbia. What is a work made for hire? So if you work for Columbia, Columbia pays you. If they pay you to develop a film, that's a work made for hire. And therefore, even though you were the copyright owner, because you created the copyright, you have assigned your interest via the work made for hire in a payment to, in this case, Columbia Records. And as a result of that, you can't take advantage of these clawback provisions to get your copyright back after a certain period of time. So again, a work made for hire is, again, and that's all going to be established at the beginning of you creating that, copyright. But it's pretty much saying, hey, this work that you're creating is a work made for hire. In other words, you're creating it for us, and therefore you cannot get this, you cannot take advantage of these clawback provisions to get that work back after a certain period of time. However, if you're sitting in your house one day and you kind of write this script, and then all of a sudden you pitch it and assign it to your interest to Columbia Pictures, and they pay you some money for it, you had personal rights to it. It wasn't a work made for hire. They didn't pay you specifically to write that film. It was something that you did on your own and therefore had personal copyright ownership in, which you later assigned. That's not a work made for hire. You can use the clawback provisions to get that copyright back after a certain period of time. So hopefully you guys get that distinction, because this is a very important distinction that's going to come into play here in a little bit. So according to the complaint, Gallo represented that he created and or wrote the story as an employee for hire, A Sweet Revenge. So pretty much what Columbia Pictures is saying is, hey, during the original contract negotiation, you pretty much you held that you created this as a work made for hire for your company. So it wasn't, okay, I had personal rights to it. You're saying that this was a work made for hire for your production company that was later transferred to Columbia. And therefore, as it being a work made for hire, you cannot use those copyright clawback provisions to get ownership of the copyright back. So that's essentially what Columbia Pictures is saying is, hey, George Gallo, you said when we initially entered this into agreement that you made this as a work made for hire. And again, he probably said that so that Columbia can say, okay, we good. Because I'm pretty sure Columbia is like, man, we don't want to have to worry about these clawback provisions and him trying to take this thing back after 25, 30 years. Oh, but and George Gallo, to get over that, he said, no, I made it as a work made for hire, for Sweet Revenge. Therefore, I can't take it back. And Columbia is like, okay, no, that sounds good for us. And therefore, that's probably why they entered into an agreement to have it go from Sweetwater Revenge, which is George Gallo's production company, to Columbia Pictures. So hopefully you guys are picking up what I'm putting down so far. So let's finish out this thing. So George Gallo argued that he had personal rights to the story that he subsequently assigned to Sweet Revenge. So he's trying to say, no, I didn't create this thing. George is saying, Columbia Pictures is saying that when we entered into the negotiations, you said this was a work made for hire. And George is saying, no, I lied. That wasn't true. I had personal rights to it, which I assigned my personal rights to Sweetwater Revenge, and therefore I can take it back. So that's where the issue comes in, that George is saying that it wasn't he had personal rights to it. That's what he's saying. He had personal rights to the story that he subsequently assigned to Sweet Revenge. And Columbia said, no, this was a work made for hire, so you can't take it back via these clawback provisions. Columbia challenged the representation, alleging that the writer in his termination notice for the first time ever asserted to Columbia Pictures just one day before he and Sweet Revenge made the agreement, Gallo had assigned his personal rights to the story to his company. So the complaint added Gallo cannot have it both ways. This was Columbia Pictures is saying he cannot make representations to induce the purchase of the story and then avoid the consequences of later claiming that the representations was false. That's what I just said. Columbia is saying, hey, you can't have it both ways. You can't make representations to get us to buy the film and say it was a work made for hire. We cool. We like work made for hires, because now we know that y'all can't, the copyright owner can't come back 25, 30 years later and say that this was a personal copyright and therefore I can get my rights back via the copyright provision. You can't initially at the beginning of this negotiation or this negotiation, you can't say that this was a work made for hire to induce us to purchase the film or to purchase the rights to the copyright, but then later come back and say, you know what, this wasn't, those representations that I made were false. That wasn't a work for hire. This was personal copyright that I own and assigned to Sweetwater Revenge, therefore allowing me to come get these personal this copyright back after a certain period of time. This, that's essentially what Columbia is saying. So you cannot have it both ways. The widespread use of entities such as Sweet Revenge used by artists who created copyright work as an employee of their own corporations weren't considered. So they're saying back in the day when this Copyright Act came back in 1976, it didn't contemplate the fact that people had their own production companies and were assigning their rights to the production company, which it seems like he's saying that, doing it this way. So such companies provide creators a variety of advantages, including tax benefits and limitations on personal liability. So they pretty much saying, hey, when the Copyright Act came into existence in 1976, it didn't contemplate people creating production companies or essentially LLCs or S corps or C corps that they're essentially giving their rights to. We all know that when you have an LLC or an S corp or a C corp, one of the big benefits of it is that it's a separation of liability. So if somebody sues a company that you created, they can't sue you personally, and vice versa. If somebody sue you personally, they can't sue the company. So that's what they're saying about it's a limitation on personal liability, but it also has some tax benefit. Now, I'm not an accountant or a tax attorney, so I'm not going to kind of speak to the tax benefits that these corporations may have. But I know, as whether it's an LLC that you create, S corp, C corp, that you assign your rights, your IP to, it creates this personal liability. I mean, this limitation on liability where somebody is suing your company, they can't sue you individually, and if somebody is suing you individually, they can't get all the assets associated with the company. So again, it seems like they settled, but again, the big takeaway from this is understand that if you have a work made for hire, so if a company hires you, gives you money to create this work, even though you're the copyright owner or the creator of it, and have copyright, you're automatically assigning your interest, your copyright, your ownership in that copyright to the company as part of a work made for hire. And in doing that, you cannot come back 25, 30 years later and use these clawback provisions to take back your copyright ownership. And again, to the extent that you personally make this your own movie or whatever the case may be, your own music, whatever copyright that you're creating, if you personally make that on your own, then go pitch it and maybe give the rights to another company, you can come back after 25, after 30 years, take those rights back via the clawback provision. So that's the big takeaway on these things. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that George Gallo, he saw all the money that was being raked in? He said, look, man, you guys already got me for 3 Bad Boys. And again, you got to think, he only got paid off for the first one. So he's not making money off of the Bad Boys 2, off of Bad Boys 3, off of Bad Boys 4, off of the TV show spinoff. He's not making money off of those. Even though he probably could have negotiated that in his contract, he probably got paid a one-time fee for the original Bad Boys film or Bad Boys 1. And then he's looking at Bad Boys 2 do crazy in the box office. Bad Boys 3, I think that joint did $400 million when it came out a few years ago. And then he's looking at Bad Boys 4 like this, looking like this is another big payday. Hey, man, I need to be able to try to capture some money. So that's why I think he filed a lawsuit trying to get some money based off not only the popularity, but the financial success of these films. And it seems like, via the settlement, I would imagine that Columbia Pictures gave him a couple dollars to kind of make him go away, especially since the films have been so successful. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think he was wrong for doing that? Let me know in the comments. Or do you think, hey, man, it's only business and copyright owners should be able to participate in the financial success of these films, even though they only was dealing with the first one. They should be able to participate in the financial success of these additional films that come out or these derivative works that comes out later down the line. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Please hit the like button if you like this video, you like this type of content, and please hit the subscribe button if you want more content like this. I'm trying to bring you guys not only entertainment of current events and things like that, but as an IP attorney, I'm trying to bring you guys value information so that you, as potential future IP owners, you can kind of know how to navigate this field. Again, work made for hire, you cannot get that back at no point in time. However, if it's personal copyright ownership that you have, which you later assign, then you can, via the clawback provisions, pull that back from whoever you assign it to after so many years. So hopefully you guys got something out of that. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.